Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another video this week. My name is Parker Roberts, and if you've never watched this channel before, this is Stories in the Dust. Now, today's video is going to be a little bit different than the stuff you guys have seen from me before, because last night I had the incredible opportunity to go and see an early screening of the movie Divergent. Now, as a huge fan of these books, I was so excited to get to see the film early, and so I thought I would give you guys my 2 cents on the 5 things I loved about the movie and the 5 things that I was a little bit off on. Now, I'm gonna warn you, there are a lot of spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to see any of those, you can click on over to this video where you can see why I was hanging out with the cast of Pretty Little Liars last week. Okay, now let's jump into it. First, the 5 things I loved. Number 1. Casting. I was so happy with the way that the casting turned out. I can say that there were a few characters I was a little worried about, but it turns out that they were all great. Shailene was great as Triss. She really captured the essence of Triss's personality, and I think that she ended up doing a really great job. She was one of the ones I was worried about, but I absolutely loved her as Triss, and I think she did a great job. Now, there's one word for Theo James. Wow. I absolutely loved Theo James as Four. I don't think anyone else could have played him. He looked the part, he sounded the part, he acted the part, and the chemistry between he and Shailene was spot on for Four and Triss. So I think he did an absolutely wonderful job. And not too bad to look at. Now, the one that surprised me the most was Miles Teller. You know, every movie I've seen Miles Teller play, he's played the happy-go-lucky, goofy best friend. And as we know, if you've read the books, Peter is a ruthless, mean, evil character. So Miles Teller as Miles Teller and Peter are very different people. So I was interested to see how they were going to make that work. And it turns out that it worked out really well, because Miles Teller really knew how to play up that evil bully in Peter, but still some of his jokes were funny to where the audience chuckled at them, but they didn't take away from the evilness and the terrible person that Peter is. And so I think he did an absolutely wonderful job, and I think they casted him and wrote for him the way that made it fit best for Miles. And Kate Winslet was so terrifying as Janine. As you know in the books, Janine is just another ruthless evil character with no sense of empathy in anything, but they made her cold and scary just as she was in the books, and of course it's Kate Winslet, so you're not going to expect anything less. 2. There were scenes that were almost straight out of the book. There were scenes like the zip-lining scene, which looked exactly how I pictured it in my head. And then Triss's final fear landscape, again, looked just like I saw it in my head and plays out almost exactly as Veronica Roth wrote it. And the knife throwing scene between Triss and Four was almost word for word exactly how it happened in the book, and again looked exactly how I pictured it. So that was one of my favorite scenes. And of course, Triss joining Dauntless the first time and jumping into the pit, again, flawless. Loved everything about it and looked just as terrifying as I expected it to be in the book. And speaking of Veronica Roth, she makes a surprise cameo, so look for her dressed as a Dauntless. Number 3, the suspense and anxiety was just as strong as it was in the book. The whole movie, I was on the edge of my seat and I knew everything that was going to happen, or at least I thought I did. But I was absolutely 100% on my edge of the seat the whole time. My heart was beating. I was wondering if Triss was going to be okay, even though that I knew she was, and it was just like really heightened energy the whole time, and you were never bored. 4, set design and costuming was spot on. Everybody looked exactly how I expected them to look. All the set looked even better than I expected it to, because when I read the books, I pictured the city less as a city and more as like made of stone, and they really showed off how Chicago looked in a post-apocalyptic world, and it was so cool to see that come to life. And then the way everybody was dressed was exactly how I pictured it as well, except for the Erudite, which were even better because they were dressed very classy and really prim and proper, which I never thought about but looked amazing on screen. And then of course the Abnegation's costumes looked just like you picture they would look. I really enjoyed seeing Dauntless and the way the pit and the dining hall and the chasm was a little bit different, but still made a lot of sense in the way that they put it together. And just the tattoo shop, everything I pictured in the book came to life on screen, and I thought it looked absolutely incredible. And that brings me to number 5, Triss's final fear landscape. Now, there was one thing that did not look anything like I pictured it on screen, but turned out really awesome, and that was Triss's final fear landscape. The way they brought in the Dauntless and Erudite leaders to watch her, and the way the room is set up and how they make all the hallucinations happen looks absolutely incredible, and it was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. And now that you know the 5 things I loved, it's time to move into the 5 things I wasn't so crazy about. Number 1, the movie moved really quickly. Now I know it's a 300-page book and there's no way that you could fit all of that information into 2 hours, but there were things that I think could have been drawn out a little bit. For instance, all of the training sequences, except for the key scenes like the knife throwing and Christina getting thrown over the chasm and things of that nature, you know, most of it was put into montages. So you saw Triss improving, but you didn't really see her as a character developing through those, and I think you lost a lot when those things moved by quickly. And then of course there was a relationship between For and Triss, and you saw it develop, but you saw it develop very differently than you did in the books. In the books it kind of happens gradually over time, there's chemistry and blah blah, and it ends up happening. In the books it's kind of like, oh, now they're in a relationship, oh, they just kissed, what just happened? So you lost a little bit of that magic moving things forward so quickly, and I think that a lot of people could have gotten confused, especially in the beginning, about the history of why the city is the way that it is and why the factions are the way that they are. You lost a little bit of that, so I would have liked to seen the movie drawn out just a little bit, or maybe some of the like minor things cut out and the more important things put back in. And 2, there wasn't enough of Triss and For together. Like I said, the movie moved really quickly, so you lost a lot of that magic of their relationship. So, you know, in the book, they kiss a lot. There's a lot of chemistry, there's a lot of that. In the movie, they kiss once. And it's not even like it happens in the book. You know, it happens in a different time, in a different space. And while the scene is great and I really enjoyed it, I would have liked to have seen more of Triss and For spending time together alone, because, you know, that was a lot of the reason that you fell in love with them as a couple, was the moments that they shared together. So I would have loved to see more of that. Number 3, they left out small but important details. For instance, they don't tell you why Triss got the 3-bird tattoo, they just show her getting it. They show her talking to Tori about things that are important, but they never tell you that the 3 birds are to represent her family. So I thought that that was something that really showed a lot about Triss's character and about her still being attached to her old faction and her family, and why she is divergent, and one of the key qualities that shows that she's divergent. So I would have loved to see more of that. And a big spoiler here, so if you don't want to see this, please click away. But one of the things I was the most disappointed about the movie is that they never told you that Triss's mom was divergent. Triss's mom comes back and talks to her and saves her, though in a different way from the books, but you never actually hear her mom tell her that she was also divergent, which was a big thing, again, in Triss's character. So I really wish that we could have seen that. For those of you who read the book, one key scene that they leave out is Peter stabbing the other guy in the eye, which for me was a huge character development moment in Peter's character and would have really showed how horrible and evil he was, but it wasn't in the movie. So number 4, they don't show enough of Peter's character. Like I said before, I loved Miles Teller as Peter, and the moments that he was in the movie were great and it really showed who he was, but I feel like there was so much character development that was missing from Peter that really plays into the second book, and so I'm interested to how they will play out the movie without really developing Peter as a character. Now I'm sure they'll figure out a way to do it, but I really would have loved to seen more of that evil and ruthless character that was Peter. And last but not least, number 5, the ending of the movie. I don't understand why they chose to end the movie the way that they did. Now, I'll tell you that the end of the movie is the gist of the end of the book, but there's a lot of details that were changed around. Like, I'm talking a lot, like as in I'm not really sure what they're gonna do for the second movie now. But it was action-packed, it was cool, but I just don't understand why they ended the movie the way that they did. Of course, I'm not going to tell you why, because that would completely ruin everything for you, but you'll have to see it for yourself to see what I'm saying. Is, you know, there were a lot of details that were left out that really played to the characters of Triss and For that I just don't understand why they decided to leave out. But, you know, Hollywood is Hollywood, and they do that sometimes. I'd have to say that my overall grade for the whole movie is probably a solid B. I really enjoyed the movie as a movie. I wish they kept things a little bit more to the book, because there were a lot of things that they added in that just were not in the book, and I don't know where they came up with them. But that being said, I still did enjoy the movie, and I'm actually going to see it again tomorrow, so I'll give you guys an update about how I feel after seeing it the second time. But like I said, overall grade, definitely a B. Alright guys, now that was my 2 cents on my 5 things I loved and my 5 things I didn't about Divergent. Now I want to hear your responses, so please leave them down in the bottom and tell me what you thought about the movie if you've seen it and if you've read the books. Like, I'm dying to know if other people feel the same way that I do. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out my other videos if you haven't. Alright, bye guys!